What's up, guys? Adam Green here with No More News. Thank you all for joining me today, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. So much going on, so much to talk about. Back on the show, I got the man, the legend, totally vindicated, Devin Stack from BlackPilled. Going to be discussing everything that's been unfolding the last few days. We're going to have to take a little bit of a victory lap. Everybody fell for it again. No refunds, Devin. What's up, man? Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, the beekeeper. What's going on in the world, man? What's going on in your head with everything unfolding? Where do we start?
Well, I'll tell you, it's like you said, it's a little vindicating. Like, I try not to gloat too much, like on Twitter and shit, but people need to understand, like, how obnoxious it is. Like, when you're warning people for years about Trump and his Jewish connections for years, and then prior to the last election, again, trying to warn people yet again, and all you're getting is this avalanche. And these are people you like that are doing this. An avalanche of people saying, "Oh, you're just blackpilling. Oh, can't you take a win?" And it's so predictable, and it's so retarded. And really, quite frankly, it's got me in this headspace now. It's where I before I was a little more populist just in my general thinking, probably because I'm American. My whole, all my ancestors are going back, several centuries are American. And I think just Americans kind of have this populist, view, the will of the people. And now I'm kind of just like, nah, not really. There's a lot of stupid fucking white people out there that their opinion shouldn't matter. And the reason why we have mass immigration is they stopped picking the oranges in the fields. And that's actually the problem, is everyone thinks that their opinion matters now. We don't have a sense of class anymore. We don't have a sense of actually you're just a peasant, and you shouldn't have a vote. Actually, like it's not just the immigrants and the blacks and the women that shouldn't vote. You shouldn't vote either. And if, in fact, if you look, that's actually not that un-American, because you can look back at the founding fathers' initial understanding of who should vote, and it wasn't just everybody, because they understood this. And that, I think that's kind of the thing that I've been thinking about, is one of the most dangerous things about MAGA is just every random retard that has just traded in watching sports ball for watching politics thinks that their low IQ, easily manipulated opinion matters now, and it really shouldn't. And so, and I don't care if that sounds elitist or whatever. I don't come from an elite family or anything like that. In fact, if this meant that I stopped having a right to vote, if we could just get rid of all the idiots and actually have a responsible elite that cared about white people in charge, I wouldn't love it, but it'd be better than the alternative, obviously. But that said, therein lies the problem, is we did have a WASP elite that kind of dropped the ball, and I think one of the biggest reasons why that took place is that WASP elite was kind of joined at the hip with Jews. And so when Jews started infiltrating the upper echelons of society, they had religious ties and religious vulnerabilities that made that possible. So I think that really, for us to solve the problems that we're facing right now, that's why I focus so much on eradicating the Jewish power in the West. And it's a complicated issue. It's a complicated issue, and it's because of the religious connections. It's also an emotional issue, and which gets stupid people right. Gets them thinking even less clearly. You start getting them emotional. They're already low IQ basket cases, and you get them thinking emotionally about something, and it becomes a nightmare. So
well put. Well put. Well, you have an elite mind, so if I get a vote, you get I vote that you can have a vote.
Yeah. Well, I think there should be some upward, the possibility where you can move up, in this, I don't even have like a framework built out, but in an ideal situation, you wouldn't just see like. In fact, that is the problem, is because the elites would start getting dysgenic and having like inbred lizard kids and stuff, and so you wouldn't want to have just like this. This is the class system, and there's no upward mobility whatsoever. You'd want to have some kind of a way that the bad elites would get ejected, and then the good peasantry would be could climb up the ladder. But it's ridiculous now that people think that they're like you just look at their pedigree and I come from a long line of ditch diggers and my opinion matters, and it's like not really, like not really.
You know what I'm noticing? Like, Spencer mentioned this when I talked to him a few months ago. He's like, we need gatekeepers. Like, it was almost better when it was just a few media channels that were giving people information. Because now it's like, if most people out there are low info and low IQ, who are they giving the authority to? They follow a bunch of other people that put out goy slop and low IQ stuff. And then that's who becomes popular. That's who gets the big influencers, because it's almost like today, the bigger influencer you are, the worse the takes are. So it's idiocracy and dysgenics.
Well, the incentive system has just thrown this into hyperdrive. It's like we all saw what happened with Twitter when people started getting paid for interactions and stuff. So next thing you know, like every tweet's about like, oh, look at this chick with big tits. What do you think? Oh, what would you do to her? Oh, what would happen if this cop with no shirt on tried to arrest you? And so it's just all these like fucking monkey brained retards in the replies going, oh yeah, I'd love to put my hands on her. She can handcuff me any day. It's just like, it's like these barely sentient retards on the internet that are just driving this interaction based economy that rewards just getting retarded people excited. So that's all you're going to get is you have all these political influencers that essentially reward people for saying either really outlandish, really stupid shit all the time, or just really massage their confirmation bias, where you have people that just, entire channel. Like QAnon is a perfect example. That was the reason why that kept going, is you could make a lot of money. You wouldn't get banned from a platform for being a Q-tard, or at least I think at a certain point, maybe they got rid of some of them. But for a really long time, you could be on YouTube. There was that one channel where they streamed 24 hours a day. They streamed 24 hours a day, every day. And they would just they would tag team in new Q-tards so they could keep the channel going. I remember and they were monetized. And so they're getting super chats 24 hours a day while, and this was like the official, this was like the one that had the guy that got caught, if not being Q, at least being in direct communication with him, because he was the one that was, while they were streaming, I forget the exact scenario, but it was something like he starts referencing a post that Q hadn't even posted yet, and then like a minute later, all of a sudden it got posted, and so he clearly had some kind of foreknowledge, and so like there's you have this kind of environment that's this kind of theater, and there's already this kind of theater, right? But instead of it being like in the old media of like Fox News, all these shills that we're used to having from MSNBC, and where it's kind of policed by either sponsorships from big corporations like Lockheed Martin, or it's also policed by access, right? Where like if you keep asking the uncomfortable questions, you'll lose your White House press pass and that sort of a thing. Which that's a bad system too. But instead of that, now you're motivated by just if the retards like what you're saying, because there's more retards than not. So if it's just based on what's the most popular, you're gonna everything. It's like you said, it's idiocracy. It's gonna just be a downward spiral into everyone just being fucking subhumans.
Right. Devin and myself were some of the biggest streamers on Odysee, and we were debanked. And I know I lost most of my income. I'm sure you got hit pretty hard too. So we are going to be playing the power chats towards the end of the show. So get your questions in, and we will play those later on. We're going to get to a bunch of the latest unfolding with the Iran-Israel war, of course, also. But first, I just want to ask you your thoughts on the Trump parade. Wasn't that awesome? Wasn't that epic?
Yeah, I mean, I can't understand. All I can think of is, well, I think there's two factors. One, I just think the military is that fucking shabby these days. And I had people when I was commenting on this, because I was actually kind of surprised. I thought, okay, well, it's not going to be obviously like I wasn't expecting like the like the kind of I wasn't expecting goose stepping and like the Fourth Reich style marching or anything like that. But I was expecting something. Like I was expecting at least high school marching band grade marching. And we didn't even get that. Like the uniforms weren't even pressed, and they weren't wearing their dress uniforms. They were wearing, just their BDUs or their fatigues or whatever they're called these days. And it's like the thing was, when I was looking at this, I'm like, no one was in shape. Like everyone was fucking fat, or I mean, there was some notable exceptions, but like everyone was like, at least a little chubby. And the other thing was like the completely different sizes of everybody, like that which made also added to the inconsistency of it all. Like instead of like looking at like, look, it's not just because we're America. You can go back at World War II, military marches and parades. And there's some consistency with the look of the people, right? They all look like they're, maybe not, closely related, but they're at the least, they're the part of the same nation, right?
Some uniformity.
And so here we got like the 4 foot tall, like illegal immigrant. And by that's the other crazy thing too, is we've got people in the military. They're not even American. Like they're actually not. They're earning their citizenship by serving the military, which it blows my mind that you would ever even have that as like a way to do it. But that's not exactly new either. During the Civil War, we brought in all these Irish people to die for the North, and that was the deal. Like, oh, you if you go kill the Southerners, like a good guy, then you get citizenship. So that I guess is not super new, but that's one thing to do that with Irish people. It's quite another to do it with like Haitians and you know what I mean, like and so you had people. And obviously you had like the 300-pound strong, powerful black woman, and so there's everyone's like in all these different shapes and sizes, and so they and their uniforms are unkempt. They don't even have any uniformity in terms of how they're presented. So it's not just that they're all, none of them are ironed, but they're not even tucked in their boots the right way. They're not even the same boots, which I get that. Not everyone is issued boots. They wear whatever boot. There's like regulations on what kind of boots you can choose. Most people get their own boots, but whatever. Like that's another reason why they should have been wearing their dress uniforms. But I think that it was an embarrassment. Like this was supposed to be a recruitment video. Like that's 100% what it was. It was 100% there.
Timing, by the way, I know it's for recruitment, and now the military is anti-woke, but the timing it's right timed with the Israel attacking Iran.
I wonder if that's just a happy accident for them, only because it's the 250-year anniversary of the Army and Trump's birthday. And I know there's a lot of people that they see these things and they're like, oh, the Jews, they probably coordinated all that, but I'd be like, that's one hell of a coordination.
Did you hear the other thing too, that it happened on 613, so like 613 mitzvahs in Judaism?
Yeah, I mean, I
they could have attacked on any day. They've been talking about it for like 30 years, and this is the day they planned it.
Right. No, I'm on the fence on that stuff only because there's with numerology stuff. I'm not saying like I know there's a lot of Jews that believe that stuff, but as far as like the ones in power that are engineering big events, like if I mean, would they really delay, like a major? I don't know. It just seems like
I don't know if it was a delay though, because I don't buy the line that like Iran is about to have a nuke and nuke America and Israel or something. That'd be. What do you think of that argument? By the way, the whole premise for Israel attacking Iran, like Are we supposed to believe that if they developed a nuclear intercontinental missile that they're just going to fire it away? Wouldn't that be suicide for them? Do they want to have their whole country blown off the map?
Well, right. Now that's the thing too, is and that's actually what I was saying up, to the build up to this. People keep asking me on my stream, like, do you think we're going to go to war with Iran? And what I've been saying is, like, look, Israel wants to go to war with Iran, or wants the United States to go to war with Iran. Obviously, they've wanted that forever. And the only reason why I have stayed somewhat optimistic on full on, American troops, boots on the ground kind of a thing, is because I know Iran's not led by idiots. They know that they can't, that's not a war they're going to win. And if you're like, think of it this way, if you're at the top of any power structure, any kind of hierarchy, you're not, like, as much as they want to paint them as these, religious extremists, like, oh, they're part of a, they're all these the mullahs, and they're all these crazy death to America psychos. It's like, no, these are like modern, educated, some of them Western educated, intelligent people at the top of that country. And yeah, they've got the religious thing, but how much of do these guys really believe it, or is it just a mechanism to govern their people? Like these people are probably pragmatists to some extent. I really don't think that they want to go down in a ball of fire over something that they could find another way of getting through. And if that means they have to bend the knee a little bit and kiss the ring a little bit when it comes to the Zio Global Homo American Empire / Israel, I feel like they would. But there obviously is going to have to be some red lines, and at a certain point, even people like that, there's a whole enough is enough when it comes to dealing with Israel. So you always have that kind of rolled into it, but these guys aren't suicidal. They don't want to fucking die. And so I think that, that you'll, until there's like some kind of, that's why when I've been watching what's going on, I don't think that, it's, World War III is going to happen. And Americans like are going to, it's going to be like Iraq even, because, I don't think that, it could go there. And I as much as I stay cautiously optimistic a little bit on that, I always tell people, I always prepare for the worst, expect the worst to happen, but hope for the best, which is funny coming from someone BlackPilled, but but on this particular topic, I'm actually not thinking like, oh no, get your bomb shelters, guys. I do think that at a certain point, maybe like after a week of missiles going back and forth, Iran has limited stockpiles of missiles. They've got limited capabilities. They're completely outmatched when it comes to the United States. And I think that the United States, especially with Trump in charge, is willing to, if nothing else, put some pretty heavy duty firepower, in the backyards of some of these people. And they know this. Our intelligence is superior because they've been planning this for so long. We probably know everything about everything that's going on in that country. The fact that Israel had built a base inside of Iran to launch their drones from tells you that, this is not, this, as you said, this is not something that they planned since October 7th. This is something that they've been planning for 40 plus years. And so, and Iran has to realize this. So
do you think Russia and China are going to step in and defend Iran if we start attacking them?
I doubt it. I feel like they would probably help in the same way we're helping Ukraine. Like I feel like they would probably that would be the maximum though. Like they would provide weapons, they would provide training, maybe they would provide intelligence, but I have a hard time. I don't think that it's strategic enough for them either, to where they feel like that they want to risk some kind of World War III scenario over Iran. Yeah, they're. I mean,
over
again,
Ukraine maybe, but over Iran less likely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though, because like maybe there's some kind of geopolitical reality I'm just ignorant of, but I don't
Their
think
oil
that
prices will go up if Iran goes down. Their oil prices will go up at least in the short
their
term.
oil prices will go up,
Mhm,
and there is like the whole the pipeline thing, right? Like
mhm.
that they've wanted to build through Iran this since forever, but it's again, I don't know enough about the strategy of Russia and China, their geopolitical strategy, to know if they think it's willing to risk going to war with the West over Iran. Maybe that
I haven't seen them threatening it
maybe
or
it is.
signaling that they're gonna thus
Right.
far.
Yeah, they haven't been saber rattling at all, and I don't even know that they've been providing any kind of uh, or like in the form of rhetoric, or even in the form of overt aid. Like
Mhm.
America is pretty overt with our aid to Ukraine, and I haven't seen Putin say or the CCP saying like we're gonna give Iran $8 billion in
Yeah.
rockets and shit, like
Yeah,
so
I
I
guess
just
Putin's
don't
not as anti-Israel as some people online tried to portray him as. And
right.
that could be why he's not doing it. There's a lot of Russian Jews in Israel, and him and Netanyahu have been buddies for years. So like him totally
Right.
taking the side of Iran isn't such a sure thing.
Hmm.
Yep. Well, let's
Right.
get to
Right.
some of this. So, more blackpilling. Trump's latest. He says Iran should have signed the deal. I told them to sign. What a shame, a waste of human life. So he's going to kill everybody. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. And I've seen there's showing video now. There's huge traffic lines for people to get out of the
Yep.
capital city. Isn't this kind of bullshit though? Because they're not only saying they can't have a nuclear weapon, they're saying they can't have any enrichment. So isn't that saying like no nuclear power also?
Well, they're just doing that because they know that's unacceptable to Iran. They want to make conditions for a deal with Iran that Iran will refuse to accept. It's as far as Israel is concerned, because Israel wants the war. They are itching for the war.
Do you
Now,
hold on? Do you
maybe
think they want the war because they really want to take out Iran and they see them as a threat, or do you think it's a bigger game that they really that we're the real target and they just want to get us dragged into a big world war?
I
Because
think
you've seen the
it's a
rabbi stuff about like the destroying the West and Edom thing, so I'm wondering if that's what all of this is actually about.
I mean, that might be motivating some of them, but I think
Mhm,
that from like a Netanyahu point of view, they
mhm,
want greater Israel. They want control over the whole region, and that's they had the clean break memo that outlined all the different countries that kind of stood in the way of that political reality, and now Iran is sort of the last one standing,
mhm.
and
The only threat, the only thing holding them back from like total domination in the region.
right. So I
Yeah.
think that's I think that's probably more likely. And if Netanyahu has to lean into like the religious imaginations of the people that support him in the same way Trump leans into the evangelical bullshit, that he'll do it.
Is
But
he
I think
leaning
that
into the evangelicals though, or the evangelicals like leaning on him and like controlling what he does? Like we're gonna show here in a second the Mike Huckabee. You just got up. Did you even see the Mike Huckabee text message that Trump shared this morning?
no,
Oh well, let me show it to you. First of all, also Axios says Trump is considering immediate U.S. airstrikes on Iran,
yeah,
and
I did see that one.
okay. And Trump says, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out. Kill with exclamation. Isn't he such a clown? Why not, too? You think they should go for him first? At least not for now, but we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention. So Israel knows exactly what they need to do. An assassination attempt like they keep hyping up on Trump, or attacking of a base or the ship they're sending over there, or anything is all they got to do if they need us to step in. And so here it is now. Here we go. So I haven't even read the whole thing yet. I was waiting for the show. This is the latest. Trump shared text message from Ambassador to Israel, Christian Zionist Mike Huckabee. Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania, to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. So God saved him to save the Jews. I can already see where this is going. the decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is only one voice that matters. His voice, Jesus's voice, God's voice. I am your appointed servant in this land and am available for you, but I do not try to get you in your presence often because I trust your instincts. I trust no president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945. The guy that dropped the nuke on Japan. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes and ears and voice, and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. You did not seek this moment. This moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you, Mike Huckabee. Thoughts?
Yeah, again, this is, I feel I can't, I don't think this is, I mean, Huckabee's obviously one of these retards that believes the end times prophecy stuff, and that's what motivates him. And many of the people in Trump's administration, that's exactly what motivates these people. It's some weird religious, let's bring on Armageddon so that Jesus comes back kind of stuff. I feel like Trump tweeting this is, again, it's trying to get these evangelicals. He knows the war is not popular. He knows that people aren't, that they're tired of wars for Israel. Miraculously, even a lot of the Christians are tired of Israel, and so this is his way of trying to manipulate them into getting back on board, reminding them that no, we support Israel because Jesus will come back again. You know, like. Don't you guys remember? That's why we always have to support Israel, because we're fulfilling prophecy, you know. And it's so fucking, it's so heavy-handed. But in my opinion, I don't think that, especially because of Trump's really godlike status in the minds of these people. I don't think anyone really has influence over him aside from the Jews. You know, I don't think like the Paula Whites of the world are steering the ship. I think that their what they want kind of overlaps with what Jews want so much that it's he just uses them to bring them on board. You know, and because really, what in the world do Jews want that evangelicals don't? I mean, there's 100% overlap there. And even if it changed, like if tomorrow Jews were like, hey, you know what? Israel, God just told us that Israel needs to take over the Congo. And we need to, like the Christians would be all about it. Like it would be completely random. It had nothing. They'd find something in the Bible that would, somehow make that make sense. And next thing you know, you'd have a bunch of evangelical goys for Israel, Zogbots, signing up to go invade the Congo for the Jews, because that's also going to help Jesus, like that. Unfortunately, I think it's at that level, and it's not as bad as it was in terms of the American Christians in the 90s. It was, I think that was like the peak of that kind of bullshit. And some of them are or maybe just because we're just not as religious, generally as we were in the 90s. But there is some waning support.
I think maybe with the internet, the prophecy and prophets and end times people are even more influential.
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, because I feel like Pastor Hagee, for example, and people like that guy. I don't think they have quite the same. I mean, there's still a lot of fucking evangelicals. There's still a lot of these Christians that are very into the end times, and they align 100% with whatever the Jews want. But I don't think it's quite what it was under Bush, where because of the internet, actually, because like before, if you're one of these people that just wants to go die for Israel, a lot of the instruction you're getting is from your pastor, your mega church pastor, or whoever, and you're not going to hear any kind of pushback in any scenario, because you certainly aren't going to hear it in church, because it's like a cult-like atmosphere where if you start question anything the cult leader says, then you're ejected immediately, and then no one hears from you again. But also because if you live in, and look, there's entire communities in the South that were maybe less so now, but in the 90s, where pretty much everyone went to the same megachurch, or at least some version of the same megachurch.
Yeah. And they all watch Fox News every night too.
Right. Which Fox News, which might as well be a broadcast from their megachurch.
Yeah.
And so now with the internet, at least, they can hear people that are pushing back on this and going, actually, this is madness, and they would never hear that otherwise. So I'm a little hopeful that some of this Jewish subversion is losing some of its effectiveness because of things like that.
I'm less optimistic because even most of the popular pushback that I see on Twitter and online, it's coming from other Christians. So it's Christians criticizing the Christian Zionists, but in a way, they still see the Christian Zionists as like part of the prophecy. They believe that they're on the wrong side of the prophecy, helping the Jews have their third temple and wars and the Antichrist, but they still think that those anti-Zionist Jews and John Hagee are fulfilling prophecy because they're falling for a satanic deception, and that has to happen before Jesus returns. Like even the Orthodox and the Catholics still think that the Antichrist has to rule and these wars have to happen for Jesus to return. So the pushback I'm still seeing is like within the Jewish mindset of prophecy being real.
And I would say one problem in particular. And I've been trying to think of like why this would have been, like why this way of thinking might have been beneficial from an evolutionary standpoint for centuries, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe white people were successful in spite of this. But the idea of just the fact that your ideology or your theology does in many ways center around a end of the world Armageddon scenario, right? Like, where every generation thinks that, oh, this is when there's a big conflict, whether it's World War I or if it's World War II or if it's, what's happening now, there's always at least some faction and sometimes a substantial one that believes this is it. This is the end times. This is when Jesus is coming back. And because it all kind of culminates in this, Armageddon story. And I've been trying to think about this lately and think like, this seems a little unhealthy to live your life and have your worldview really looking forward to the end of humanity. In a way, like it's kind of looking forward because that's the good ending to the story. Is
when we lose, we win. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when everyone dies and the world's on fire. And there's dinosaurs crawling out of volcanoes and eviscerating everybody. Then Jesus comes and it's like, I don't know, that doesn't sound great to me. Like that doesn't sound awesome. And I don't know how. I feel like psychologically that's gotta. And it's funny because I feel like Christians get this because what did you used to hear all the time about Islam? They would say the same thing about Islam. Oh, they're a death cult and they're trying to make the sixth imam or whatever, emerge and, the end of the world. And so they recognize this in other groups and how that could psychologically be a bad thing, but they don't see that, no, that's kind of part of your story too. And it can be weaponized against you because and maybe that's how it has been a survival or maybe an adaptive survival strategy to make you feel like anytime there is some kind of massive conflict that it does have so much importance. And so there are so many people that want to get involved and to fight whatever conflict there is. But it seems to me like this can lead to really bad shit. And in the case of what's going on right now, if you have Mike Huckabee and Marco Rubio is another, when you're or the head of your Secretary of State.
Yeah, Hegseth.
Hegseth, your Secretary of Defense. When all of your top dogs, when it comes to a conflict that very well could lead to a nuclear exchange, when they all, because I believe that people like Rubio and Hegseth are true believers. Trump, I don't know, but I think that Hegseth certainly and Rubio almost certainly believe this stuff and are 100% okay with missiles flying and mushroom clouds. I think they're 100% okay with this shit, and that's not the best. That's not great. That's not, because they're the ones that would decide that, like they're the ones that would be pushing the button. So it's not great that, but that's what I mean by why I think that Trump uses this is he wants people that would be willing to push the button. He wants people in those positions so that if it comes to that, you're not going to get any pushback. You're not going to get like, during the Cold War when we'd have all these movies about, all the hand wringing and discussion that went on. Oh, should we push the button? That's going to be the end of humanity. And they have all these soliloquies about how, the man has never caused this kind of destruction. No, I feel like, if Trump got on the phone, it was like, hey, Pete, throw a few Trident missiles their way. He'd be typing in the nuclear codes on his laptop, or I guess texting them on Signal or something.
God's will. God told me to nuke Iran, like Huckabee's post there. Listen, there's only one person you listen to, and that's the Jewish Bible and the voice in your head. Like that's the worst thing to be listening to, given our circumstances. I want to plug and encourage everybody to watch Devin's last video on Rumble and Odysee. What was the title of it? It's about the end times documentary. Tell everybody about that real quick. And I want to.
Oh, that one was called World Calamity Edition. And what it was about was there was a evangelical, you could say preacher, but you could also say prophet in the 1970s. And he wrote a book that was very influential among evangelicals. And it was called, I dumped my notes. Let me see here. It was called, it's like something like this earth, let me load up my notes here from that show.
Okay. But it was a end times Christian Zionist end times documentary from like the late 70s, right? That's what it was.
Yeah, no. And it was so influential that, after he wrote the book, Reagan asked him to come and there's the guy right there. Reagan asked him to come and give lectures to the Department of Defense, the Department of State, members of Congress, and Reagan 100% believed in this book that was by the time Reagan was elected had been turned into this movie. So it actually started out as a book, and then it Hal Lindsey, that's the guy's name. Let me look up his. I'm blanking on the name of the book here. Hal Lindsey, who died at age 95 last year. So he was around for a long time.
Just missed the apocalypse. It's happening in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've seen this exact same documentary. It was made again in like 2006 with Mike Evans, the Jewish Christian Zionist that Netanyahu and Trump like. Same exact documentary of these end times doomers and their prophecies.
They keep remaking it.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep remaking it, and they just shoehorn whatever's going on in the world to fit in these prophecies. So the name of the book and the movie was The Late Great Planet Earth. And this was he published the book in 1970, and then the movie came out on TV. First, they produced it as a TV film in 1974, and they played it 2 years in a row because no TiVos back in 1974. So they played it twice. It got an audience of 17 million people. So it wasn't like, here's some random, TV show that some kooky Christian played. No, this was very well received and got a lot of viewers. So they turned it into a movie where Orson Welles is the host. So it's, again, they spent $10 million in 1978 money on the budget. So it was not a small budget movie. And they obviously went to Israel. He does part of his monologue in front of the Dome of the Rock, and talking about the third temple needs to be rebuilt, and
Israeli ambassador is in it, egging all of this along too.
Right. And so they and he's wearing a Star of David necklace too, the whole thing, which I didn't notice till because it's the video is so fuzzy, and then there's this one shot where it's like super obvious, and I was like, oh fuck, man. You're wearing a fucking Star of David this whole time. So yeah, it's obviously super Jewy, but it got a lot of it influenced a lot of Christians. It influenced presidents. It influenced heads of state. And there's the good old Orson Welles, gigantor himself, that late in his career. They had Club of Rome people in there that were telling white people to stop having kids because of all the calamities coming. And but he wrote so many books that were all like this, and it didn't matter that it kept not happening. He kept writing the books. So, like as an example, he wrote this book in 1970. In 1974, he wrote "When is Jesus Coming Again?" And I'm skipping he wrote tons of them. I'm skipping every 5 years here. In 1980, he wrote the 1980s Countdown to Armageddon. In 1990 or 91, he wrote Israel and the Last Days. So it doesn't matter that it keeps not happening. In 1995, he wrote the Final Battle, and then he skipped another 5 years. And every year he's coming out with another book, like 96, 97, 96.
Christians have been doing this for 2,000 years, pretty much.
Right.
And Jews also been doing this for 2,000 years.
Yeah, he wrote another one called Apocalypse Code. He wrote in 1999, Facing the Millennium Midnight, because that now is Y2K now was when Jesus was going to come back.
Yeah, they were predicting for years that everything would go to hell in the year 2000, and then that never happened. And then of course they just backtrack and change everything. And then then
it was 2012, the Mayan calendar, and his last book was 2003. It was Faith for Earth's Final Hour. And I can tell you, just because my ancestors were Mormons, my family's Mormon, and the full name of the Mormon Church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they call each other Latter-day Saints. And what the meaning of that is, they think we're in the last days of existence, and so these are the latter days. And so the whole worldview of the Mormon Church is that we're Armageddon's just it's about, we've done all the other stuff, we did the Old Testament, the New Testament, and everything in between, and now we're in the final chapter of existence, and we have to hurry up, and that's why there's all those missionaries, right? Because that's actually to try to fulfill end times prophecy too, because they think that the church has to reach all the corners of the earth, and in order for that to be fulfilled, obviously you have to send guys wearing ties on bicycles to Guam and Budapest, right? So that's why you have these missionaries all over the world to try to do that. But it motivates everything that they do. And this idea that we are, and I was raised in an environment where I was told that you might see it, you might be alive when all this hellfire is raining down on you, and then Jesus comes out.
So you better get right with God. You better believe in Jesus. That's almost like how they scare you into getting you to believe.
Right. And I feel like maybe that's probably how it also psychologically has maybe an adaptive way of governing behavior, having that end times thing of it, or be so relevant to your own life. Right. And you can hear echoes of this in just the way that a lot of these evangelical Christians talk about everything. That's why they're more likely to believe in Q, because they think that it attaches an importance to your or to your life, like your life is a movie and you're the main character. That there will be the same kind of a structure, right? That all the the Old Testament, New Testament, that's like the text in the Star Wars movie when the Star Wars movie opens up, right? That's just the text you have to read to know what happens now. And in the exciting conclusion of your life is when you get to watch Armageddon and everything. And so that's why they believe stuff like Q. That's why they believe in things that are retarded, because they think that their life is the exciting conclusion that it's like they. But unfortunately, the funny thing is, I don't know how familiar you are with soap operas. The way that they used to, I don't even know if they still have them, but my mom used to, when I was a little kid, I used to be playing with my toys when my mom was watching these fucking things. And even as a kid, I remember thinking, like, why are you getting tricked by this, Mom? Because what they would do is all week long, like nothing happens, like nothing happens. And then like on Friday, something that is almost going to happen. Oh, is Susie going to be cured of her amnesia? Is Jimmy going to finally find his son who is lost in the Amazon? And you better tune in to Monday to find out the conclusion of all these cliffhangers. And then my mom would, tune in Monday to see if, like, they were going to find out is Billy really Jimmy's son, or is it Johnny's son? And then
Jewish drama.
Yeah, and then Monday rolls around and either there is no resolution, or it's like this really boring resolution that's so boring that you get caught up on in the next cliffhanger that's going to drag you all the way until Friday, and then do the same fucking trick. And I kind of feel like in a lot of ways that's kind of how you control people. That's how you manipulate people. That's why you get people that are stuck in this like 2 more weeks mindset that the Q-tards get stuck into.
Trust the plan, saving Israel for last. How's that working out so far? So yeah, everybody check out Devin's last video about this old anti or end times movie. It's a really good video. You break it down well. And they have been wrong for so long. And I don't believe in prophecy, but I do think that prophecy is like creates a phenomena where it can manifest actual things. And it is clear that if all these people are believing, all these different Abrahamic religions are all believing in end times wars, I don't think Jesus is ever going to float down. But if they're all eventually, if all these people are in the positions of power on all sides, they could blow up the world, hoping that Jesus will return. And I wanted to share this with you. Are you familiar with a term I learned recently called hyperstition?
No.
Okay, well, let me
I haven't seen that.
You real quick. It's just real short.
Land describes something called hyperstition, the idea that fictional beliefs create real outcomes. If you could convince people that something was inevitable, like a future run by AI overlords, you could actually bring that future into existence. For a while, Land's ideas were pretty much confined to weird
So hear that? Myths and people's beliefs can create real world things. So they're following these scriptures like a script, like a blueprint, where they know, and then they'll eventually get their end game and their end goal. So that's what I'm worried that's happening, that these people are going to try to fulfill prophecy, try to hasten Jesus, and Jesus isn't going to float down on a cloud, and it's not going to be exactly like the scriptures say, but it's going to be close enough, and it's going to end in global war. So what do you think?
Right. No, I think, well, just think about propaganda. Jewish propaganda is the same way. The whole point of propaganda. Yeah. Well, and even just in small ways, like if you depict, like Abby Kaufman said, who was the flower power Jew in the 1960s, said that a good propagandist doesn't depict the world the way that it is, but the way that he wants it to be. And then if he's good at it, that it'll manifest. And in a sense, you could say it's like Jewish magic. It's because what you're doing is you are as they did in all these movies for decades, you're presenting a fictional view of what the world is, and people start. It goes back to the old argument, art imitating life, life imitating art. And it goes both ways, right? You do have obviously reflections of reality in art, or else it would be unrelatable. But also you have art that inspires people to want to make that a reality. And so that's something that I think the elites have been well aware of forever. I mean, the first person to understand that you should have posters or any kind of propaganda or any kind of novels or the earliest writing. I mean, there's a reason they made it so not anyone could have a printing press when that was first. It's funny because when they tell you about the story of the printing press, they make it sound like, oh yeah, the printing press was invented and that unlocked, all this information overload that everyone had access to it. And it's like, no. When the printing press was invented, it was regulated heavily because they were afraid of what it could do. They were afraid that what would happen if everyone had access, even to the Bible. And in fact, the only books they allowed to be printed for a long time were the Bible. And there was a lot of censorship when they just had the printing press, in the same way that there's censorship with the internet. So they've always understood that mimetic power that the exchange of information has, and they've always tried to control it as much as possible so they can manifest these kinds of things and put them into reality. So yeah, I 100% believe that's right, and that's why they lean into things that will, like, this is why I think that Trump leans into the evangelical stuff, because he knows that their fantasies already line up with his desired reality. He doesn't even have to really write a whole lot of fiction, because they come pre-programmed with that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and his arrogance and his narcissism and his ego really plays well with them, because they see him as a messianic figure. So he loves that. He loves the Q cult that thinks he's the savior of the world, and same with the Zionist. It's so important, because anybody that's like affirming and legitimizing Bible prophecy, they're really just like affirming the chosen people and the prophets and the nation of priests, and that puts them in the driver's seat. And that's eventually it's going to end up with them manifesting like their outcomes and their plan. And that's where we're heading. And you mentioned like how like Christians or whoever will like point the finger at the other Abrahamic prophecy believers and say like they're the problem. Last stream I played a clip of Glenn Beck talking about the Iran war, and he was like, these psychotic death cult Muslims, they believe in prophecies that their Messiah is going to rule the world and they're going to have end times wars, and they're such a dangerous threat. We got to do something about it. It's like, dude, how are you not aware that that's what you Christians and all these rabbis also believe? And they're actually the originators and the OGs of it.
Right. No self-awareness at all. And it's because they are true believers. Glenn Beck is another one of those where it's like, I don't know, is he a true believer? I feel like he probably is. The reason why I'm always skeptical of him, he's a Mormon convert. And I'm always skeptical of the veracity of it depends on it. If you're like, just growing up, like, it's easy for me to understand why you would believe it 100% if you were raised in it, because I was raised in it, and it took me a long time to be like, I don't know if this is, and I'm a smart guy. It still took me like a long time to be like, I don't know, did he really find the golden plates like in New York? And like, did he? And it's something I struggled with for a long time. So I can understand that. I can't understand someone as an adult coming to the church unless there's like a woman involved, that's usually what happens. Like they want to date a Mormon girl, and so she drags him to church, and he converts to make her happy. I don't understand how
adults
that happens.
For it.
Yeah, but maybe because here's the thing, though, he was this crazy drug addict when he was younger, and those guys usually do go all in because they just trade in the drug for religion. So maybe he does believe it. But on the bright side, I'm actually surprised at how Zionist Glenn Beck is for a Mormon. That's not typical. I mean, they're not. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing special about Mormons that make them impervious to the Zionist stuff. But I'm surprised. I mean, he's like super Zionist. Like he's more like, that's not the language he uses is not typical, or at least it wasn't when I was growing up. You didn't hear that sort of stuff just from like normal, Mormon church leadership. but he's like super gun ho for Israel in a way that's there's probably some kind of financial connection with Glenn Beck too, because remember he had a lot of financial ups and downs after his departure from Fox News and trying to create the Blaze, and so it makes you wonder, like, who initially bankrolled the Blaze, who kept
well,
that.
He teamed up with CRTV and Mark Levin, right, who's leading the charge for this war as well, and is a Jewish Zionist.
A lot of his, well, and that's the thing too, that whole world of late 90s, early 2000s conservative pundits, they're all in bed with Jew, like, you know, Sean Hannity, same thing, right, for the same reasons. I mean, I grew up listening to Sean Hannity on the radio, and he would have Mark Levin on, you know, periodically, and promote Mark Levin all the time. In fact, he literally called Mark Levin the Great One. He never said Mark Levin. He always said the Great One. And so it's like, okay, those guys have been joined at the hip forever. And so, yeah, that whole world that Glenn Beck, you know, evolved in and emerged from was super, super Zionist and super Jewy. It's crazy looking back that I think about that sometimes. Like, they were always talking about it. Like, now that you think about it, you know, whether you're obviously Dennis Prager, obviously people like Michael Medved, obviously
Savage,
even
Michael Savage.
Yeah, Savage. Mm-hmm. All those people, like, you know, because those are all Jews, but like even the non-Jews, you know, like Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, O'Reilly, even like some of the smaller guys, they were always Israel shills, and it never really clicked back then, because I guess because I was a kid and I didn't know anything about, yeah, I'd never even, you know, left the country unless you're talking about crossing the border into Juarez to get drunk when I'm 17. You know what I mean? So it was, you don't really think about what the hell's going on the other side of the planet unless you know, I mean, you do when your friends are coming home in body bags, but like that's you don't have a good understanding, and you kind of just trust. I mean, the voices on the radio that agree with you that we need to send back the Mexicans and that they hate fags. So you're kind of like, yeah, these guys probably they probably have it figured out when it comes to this Israel stuff, and so you kind of just defer to them. You know, you defer, and in fact, in some ways, especially if they're Jewish, because you're like, well, he probably knows, he's been to Israel, and you also think in the same terms that, like, you would think, like, you don't think about the tribalism, because you think that, well, if an American came, like, let's say I lived in England, and some American was telling me that an American that agreed with me politically was telling me about American politics, I would think, okay, this is probably the understanding I would have, because he agrees with me with everything else that I would have about American politics, not realizing that there's a racial component that the guy from Israel has that the American wouldn't have. That, you know, that there's this tribalism, this nepotism, and so just because Dennis Prager says he agrees with you when it comes to gay marriage and all this other shit, when it gets to Israel. What you don't realize is he agrees with Chuck Schumer. You know, he agrees with all the lefty Jews that you hate. They're on the same page as Dennis Prager all of a sudden. So yeah, I think that the internet's made it so there's a bigger spotlight on this kind of tribalism.
Yeah, tribalism. I think, like, I know as a kid, I was raised in church, but like I didn't know about Jews at all. I'd see all these people that you just named on TV, maybe, or on the radio, and I wouldn't even know they were Jewish. I just thought they were white guys.
Right. Well, yeah, I Dennis Prager made it obvious because he talked about it all the time. But there's most of these people I didn't know were Jewish. Like Mike Savage, when I found out he was Jewish, I was surprised by that. And especially on TV, you know, that's the other crazy thing too, is it's not even just like political punditry in movies. Like when you start to realize how many of them were Jewish, like the people that you thought represented the all-American guy, you know, like actors that you thought that you know that you would relate to as the protagonist in the movie that you were watching, to realize how many of those guys were Jewish and effectively completely foreign. That was I think that's shocking to a lot of people when they first start to put that together. And then obviously as well as the people writing the stories that these people are acting in. So yeah, so much of the American public, the reality that they lived in, has been manufactured by Jews, and that's what really paved the way for a Trump presidency.
Yeah, including more so than anything, probably the religions too. Here, check out this one. Here's a good gullible goyim boomer brain. Bill Mitchell, huge Trump shill. Bill Mitchell, almost 500,000 followers. Has anyone considered the possibility that as America has miraculously survived so many close calls over the centuries that our purpose is to defend Israel? If we quit Israel, I believe God may quit us, and I'm not prepared to take that chance.
I think, as much as that's obscene, I think that even if they don't articulate it the way that he just did, a lot of Americans, evangelicals specifically, view that as precisely the role of America. I think Mike Huckabee in the text message kind of makes it clear that he believes that that's America. That by the way, that's something that a lot of Europeans don't get.
And Trump was saved by God to save the world and save the Jews. He said that on the campaign trail, literally.
Well, right.
Yeah.
And the fact that didn't set off any alarms. I remember during that campaign, I was, every time Trump would say that, Israel won't exist unless I get elected, and I'm going to be the best president for Israel. He was always saying this shit, and I'm pointing it out. And there were so many people that were just like, oh, he just has to say that to get the Jew money. And I'm like, yeah, but even if that's the case, you want a guy who's there because of all the Jew money? You think that Jew money isn't paying for anything? Like, are you insane? And yeah, like it's really frustrating to see all these people who just sweep under the carpet and ignore it. I think a lot of the Europeans that are observing this from afar, they don't understand this element of the Christian right in America, because they don't have it to the same degree that, or even really much at all, as far as, they don't have evangelicals in Europe, right? And so I don't think they understand it. I don't think Americans understand it for the same reason that a fish does a fish know that it's in water? Does a fish think of itself as I'm underwater? Or is it just, it's always in water? And so that's just, we don't think of ourselves, I'm under air. I'm swimming around in the air.
Bill Mitchell has probably been having Christians in his replies and on Twitter. You think he's never seen people calling Jews the synagogue of Satan, or that they killed Jesus, or Jesus is boiling in excrement? You think he's never heard that before? He's heard that. He just doesn't care. And look at this.
Well, he doesn't care because
to defend Israel.
Well, right. No, he doesn't care because he thinks that's built into his worldview, that there's going to be those people that say this stuff because they're the evil ones that work for Satan.
The not real Christians. So both sides are calling the other side not real Christians. This is like verbatim what the rabbis say about the Gentiles, though, that your purpose is to serve the Jews. That even the Esau and Jacob, you shall live by the sword and you shall serve your brother. The rabbis say God created the Gentiles to plow the fields and to serve the Jews as the Noahide servants, and you'll be cursed if you curse them and blessed if you bless them. And 2.3 thousand likes.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's an uphill battle with a lot of these guys, which is why ultimately I think that their opinion shouldn't matter. I think that once you have people who are that low IQ people it's almost like it's like computer hardware, right? Like they're almost like they have like cheap hard drives that you can only write to so many times before like the data starts getting corrupted, and you can't keep updating the information on them. And so once they're programmed as a child to believe in this stupid shit, which I think a lot of things will change when the boomers die off. I think it's a little overstated by some people. Like I see people tweeting things like, "Oh, Jews better watch out when the boomers die off. It's it's go time," and I think maybe a little bit, but But yeah,
And that's what makes our time so dangerous, because the Jews do know that. There was like a leaked video of Greenblatt saying about how they've totally lost the younger generation. So like they know it's a now or never time. Where I even saw somebody post like they better have their beast system in place before all these Zionist boomers die off. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, I think there's some definite truth to that, but I think it's underestimating the amount of support they have. Maybe they've lost a lot of support.
How many young people that are supposedly based in red-pilled and anti-Jewish got right behind Trump and fell for it again with Trump? So I wouldn't be so optimistic about the younger generation, especially the ones that are still falling for Jewish fairy tales in the Bible, because they're still stuck in the Jewish matrix with that.
Well, I feel like there's unfortunately there's people that will always fall for people like Trump, people that are charismatic, people that are going to promise them the moon, and then even when they don't deliver, they still fall for it again because at least he's saying it, even though like it's kind of like there's a desperation because these are people that have never had for generations the right has not had someone in power. And so just the fantasy alone is enough to drive them to want to do it. It's why poor people are more likely to buy lottery tickets, because they just the idea alone is worth paying the price of the ticket, so they can at least fantasize about what they would do with all that money if they won. And
it's for white pills.
Right. And it's stupid, and it's going to lead to our extinction if we keep doing this. But that's what people do. And because a lot of these people are just like I said, they lack the IQ to really see what's going on. They're easily manipulated, and they get angry at the people that point out what's actually happening. And so I don't know what I'll tell you what though. I'm kind of, I don't know. Every time I say this, it ends up just going back to the before. Like, I remember saying this about Trump the first time around. I remember saying like, oh, at least now people will realize that Trump was bullshit, that he wasn't, Q, and he wasn't going to cross the Rubicon and do all this shit. And then they went and fucking voted for him again. It's like, and I remember saying this then. I was like, I was so mad. I was like, I'm going to have to do this for another fucking 4 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
A repeat of 4 years of my life. And it is. It's 100% the same fucking retarded bullshit again.
Yeah, they gave us the copes. They sold us on the copes. Trump he's better now, and he's not going to surround himself with the wrong people. Look who he surrounded.
It's Jared Kushner's the one.
Yeah, or they'll sit now. They've been pushing all these theories that Trump is playing 4D chess and he secretly hates Netanyahu, and they're reading Netanyahu's body language. And Trump announced he was going to take Gaza, which is ultimately going to go to Israel anyway. They're like, oh, look at his body language. Like, I don't know. And this is what got him in. And we told you this was going to happen, and now it's all unfolding exactly like we warned about. And the sad thing is all the people that shilled for Trump when it mattered right before the election, they're all being hailed as the saviors now for opposing him and calling him out on Iran, when it's like, dude, it's all your fault for this.
Right. Well, and look, and for the people that are still better than Kamala, actually, probably not. Like Kamala that presidency would have been run by the same people running the Biden administration. Let's not act like Biden was at the wheel, or that she would have been. Yeah. And I feel like while ultimately Israel still gets what they want, not to the degree and not with the religious fervor that they would with Trump. And that's because Trump was such a polarizing figure, because he's such a cult leader, that the cult members the cult of MAGA would not have, or would be way more likely to oppose, if for no other reason that it's not Trump, almost anything Kamala wanted to do, right? So if Kamala wanted to go to war with Iran, even like the MAGA people now that are like shouting about like how Trump is doing 4D chess, or that they trust Trump.
I trust Trump. I trust his instincts. Even they would be against it and opposing it strong if it was Kamala.
Right. So, and the same thing with the Palantir stuff that Trump wants to do. All this stuff that they think that would be worse under Kamala. It'd be the same. Deportations would be. They are the same. Deportations are the same now, roughly, as they were under Biden. So you'd have the exact same level of deportation. You'd have the exact same level of pretty much everything. The economy would probably be about the same. Everything would basically be the same. You know, like nothing, none of the promises, none of these big red meat promises Trump was promising so that he could get in a position where he could be Israel's bitch. None of that shit ended up working. All right. And I actually, believe it or not, I think that, and this, you know, really what has strengthened this is paradoxically, because there are a lot of Jews on the left, paradoxically, you go back and look at the people opposing Zionism for the like during the 20th century, just as an example, most of it's coming from the left. Like most of it's leftists, like most of it's progressives. The people that were pro-Zionism during the 20th century and since have mostly been right-wing Christian people, or at least people that consider themselves right-wing Christian people. And so, you know, like you wouldn't have this same slavish mentality. Like think about you know, like Clinton, right? Clinton was trying to create a two-state solution with Arafat and all that stuff, whereas the Republican administrations were way more, you know, willing to go to war in Iraq and try to create the Greater Israel Project. So as much as I am the opposite of a leftist on basically everything. They've been basically that's where all the opposition to Israel has been coming from, is been from leftists. And
that's the cope too. I keep seeing online, they go, "Oh, you think Kamala wouldn't have been just as Zionist as Trump?" Yeah, definitely. Trump was the chosen one, and it's not even close how much more of a Zionist Trump is than Kamala.
Yeah, she barely mentioned Israel. You know, if there's any benefit to the fact that you have all these anti-Israel brown people in the country now, like if you want a silver lining to that, it's that if anything, Kamala has to pander to those people, right? She has to pander to the same people that Trump is now, you know, bending over backwards and burning the Constitution to deport because they're calling Israelis colonizers. Those are the people that Kamala would have to actually, you know, try to satisfy in some way. So that's the big difference, is like literally on every measurable thing, Trump was a disaster for white people from the get-go. He was worse for white people. He was worse. He was going to accelerate white genocide. And if you voted for him, you should feel bad.
did you? I know you should, and we get to say we told you so, and you're wrong, and you don't have credibility anymore. Did you see these protests over the weekend? The No Kings protests. You got any thoughts on those? I went to two of them.
The white. Yeah. No, I saw this tweet. I think you got it right on the money. It's just like bored. These are all bored, middle class, California white bitches with literally no meaning in their life. Like these are the women that they don't believe in anything. They don't have any kind of religion. Many of them probably don't have kids. They don't have anything going on in their life. And so this kind of fills that empty hole.
Yeah. I'm participating in democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My side didn't win. Like that's the only thing that's getting these people out there for the most part.
These are the most hollow people in existence right there. The white lady, the soccer mom without any kids is really what it boils down to. And that's a lot of California.
It's so annoying to see all the signs that were there. Like almost every sign was like fascist, dictator, no kings, as if he's a king. How is he any more of a king than any other president? Like he's being blocked in the courts. They're trying to arrest him and shit. They're saying he's the next Hitler. He's Nazi. He's KKK. Every single sign was like that. Trump, Hitler. He's the biggest Shabbos Goy for Israel ever, wins all the top Jewish awards, about to get us in another war for Israel. And every single one, no stars of David. It's just Trump is Hitler. Trump is a Nazi.
Right. No, that's because Unfortunately, when I was talking about the people, the 80% of the population, they're retards and they shouldn't have a voice. That's pretty much everyone at that rally. It fits in that 80%. So the right has fewer of them. I will say that we have fewer of them, but the left is almost entirely made up of those people.
Yeah,
The
I
left
went to
is
it was
almost
like a beach
100%
town,
retards.
mostly white, and they're out there protesting like, "We hate ICE, no more ICE." Like, let's get real. Do you want a bunch of gangster cartel criminals, violent criminals, raping and selling drugs to your kids, and then they're out here with diversity is our strength, and we don't want borders, and there's no one's illegal on stolen land, and all these vacuous mantras that it's like they're not going to stop until every remaining, nice city in town is destroyed.
Yeah, no, this is it's a weird unholy alliance between diversity, who is clearly the Mexicans are obviously motivated to go out there and protest because it's them we're talking about, and then the people who spend their entire lives making enough money to live somewhere as far away from possible or as possible from these people. And so it's like this weird unholy alliance, and I think on some degree it is the white liberal that lives, the limousine liberal that wants to that has like some kind of internalized guilty complex about the fact that they do behave in this way that's contrary to what they say, that drives them to go to these events so that they can, it's like penance for them, right? They're like, no, look, see, I really do, I just because I live in Orange County in this this really white part of town doesn't mean it's because I'm racist.
Yeah.
Look, I got
Gentrified,
a
every
sign.
home is $1 million, and if they ever lived around in these diverse multicultural areas, they would hate it and they'd pay anything to get away from there. But now they're out there with signs saying diversity is their strength, and they don't want to have immigration laws and all this shit. It's trash.
Yeah.
So here's some other interesting, we'll get to these super chats in a second. We got a few of them, but I wanted to share this. This is interesting. Trump was asked about Iran and their nukes, and apparently just like a few months ago, Tulsi Gabbard said that they investigated and that Iran was nowhere near getting nukes, and they didn't have them, and they weren't trying to get them. And Trump says he doesn't care. He thinks they're going to get them anyway. So check this out.
Continues to assess that Iran is not building a The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
So the whole thing, even his own appointee, the whole thing's a farce. And look at this. He's just bullshitting. He's bullshit, spreading Jewish lies. He lied also with these negotiations was all a ruse as well to lull them to sleep so Israel could attack. While they're leaking stories in the media that Trump's turning against Netanyahu and shit like that, and all the alt media talking heads regurgitated that shit. So here's Trump, and then we'll get your thoughts, Devin.
But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon. I
don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
So he doesn't care what she said. They're very close because the Jews told them.
Yeah, yeah, or who knows? Maybe God told him, right, through the power of Huckabee or something. But yeah, that's the problem. Is this? It's obviously not about Iran is going to build. They've been using that excuse for my entire lifetime. As long as I have been alive, I have been hearing that Iran is weeks away from having a nuclear arsenal that's going to wipe out Israel, and we have to go and save Israel from the great evil
from the next.
And by the way, right. And by the way, did you know that they chant "Death to America" every day? Yeah. Like, and it's like it's almost, and that's the funny thing. When you're a kid and you hear this stuff, you start imagining like a group of insane, evil desert people that every day they gather in the square and they raise their fists up and shout "Death to America" for like 20 minutes, and then they go to their job at the nuclear weapons factory, to go and make bombs to go wipe out humanity, and unfortunately, a lot of people still have that retarded view in their head, and so when they hear Trump say that shit, that just it just confirms what they already think.
And a few months ago, Tulsi warned, she got the new memo, she got the new talking point. She warned about a nuclear holocaust, says Iran is closer than ever. No, actually, I think this was about Russia. But of course, she did this video about nuclear war to try to get everybody scared so that they're all prepared to oppose Iran, right? And so
and
it's almost like the new Pearl Harbor. So we got our new Pearl Harbor predictive program, and we got the 40 beheaded babies, the babies in incubators. We got the world WMDs, and we have to topple Assad. And they're just playing all these lies over again. And sadly, people are falling for it, and it's working. Even if we're pushing back online, you think that's going to stop Trump? You think Trump really cares what's going to happen online? If anything, Elon's probably right, and he is blackmailed and has always been blackmailed and controlled through Israel and Mossad.
Yeah, here's the thing: well, as far as the Epstein stuff, like 100%, Trump at minimum knew it was going on, and in fact, quite possibly was part of it. He might, like, that's the people, they think that, Trump, they have blackmail on him, or he was part of it. Like, because his buddy before Epstein was Roy Cohn.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's more likely? The guy, like the operation that Jews have to get blackmail on American billionaires and powerful people, that's like his buddy twice. And that they have information on him, or that he was part of what facilitated that. Like, he used to throw these parties that famous actors would go to. They call it date farming, and he would throw the parties full of models, so that, like, if you were Leonardo DiCaprio and you wanted to bang some hot new model, you would go to one of these Trump parties and pick up a chick. And so he was, like, of course, most of them, but not all, were over 18. But if you read a lot of the accounts from people who went to these parties in the 80s and 90s, they'd say, no, there's a lot of 15-year-olds getting handed drugs and fucked in a suite, down the hall. And people will say, well, that's not like 10-year-olds. It's like, no, but I mean, it's adjacent, isn't it? So what's more likely that Trump, they have dirt on Trump, or maybe he just partied with sex traffickers and he kind of was, that was just his world.
Yeah, his network is the ones doing the blackmail. It's
right.
Just likely as him being blackmailed. You don't need to be blackmailed when you're already on board and part of the club.
Right. So, I think people kind of gloss over that very real possibility that he was just, that was part of his crew. That's why, for example, he appointed Acosta to Secretary of Labor, because that was the prosecutor that got his buddy Epstein off. And look, there's, Epstein I did a whole stream on that. If people are interested in that, they can check that out. I think it was a couple streams back. I forget the name of it now, but the connections between Trump and Epstein go back, and Ghislaine Maxwell too. They were family friends for like 15 years straight. They're always riding on his planes. He's always on their yachts. Like, it's documented. Like, this is just the stuff that made it to the society pages. Imagine all the stuff that didn't. You know what I mean?
Remember, Maria Farmer was the first that we know of Epstein's victims to go to the police, and she named Epstein, Dershowitz, and Trump in the early 90s. And then right before the election, they leaked some video or some audio of Epstein saying that he was best friends with Trump for 10 years. And then when they asked Trump about, like, will you release the Epstein tapes, he goes like, well, not as much. Yes, but not as much. So not so much, because we don't want people to get hurt, because there's a lot of like disinfo in there or something along those lines. It's just like, dude, and you guys all fell for it. That's the kind of answer he gave, and you all You all still trusted the plan. It's ridiculous. Trump says we have total control of the skies over Iran. And now he says that he wants a real end instead of a ceasefire. So now they've shifted from you can't have nukes to they want regime change. JD Vance, did you see this one? JD Vance is backing him in a whole long big tweet. But did you see this one at the parade? Vance said, we never ask you to go to war unless you absolutely have to. And guess what, Goy? We absolutely have to go save Israel right now. You know that's what's coming.
Yeah, like what's more important? Well, I stay a little optimistic. We won't have boots on the ground out there.
I think that's a straw man. Actually, people saying, "Well, there's no boots on the ground, so it's not a real war." We're already in the war, if you ask me. He's already backed them in the war.
Well, I mean, like we have boots on the ground in to the degree that we have. I'm sure we have people in Israel advising and helping and interfacing between, helping coordinate between our intelligence agencies and theirs and everything. I'm sure we already have that, to a degree. But yeah, I don't think there's, at least not. I don't see indication of it yet. I don't think we're gonna have like an Iraq style, like Fallujah style, boots on the ground invasion of Tehran, but. We don't have to.
Fighter jets are going to be dropping bombs that we're going to be getting them or doing our own bunker busters. That's
right. We have drones. We got jets. We got
the ships that are going over there too. There'll be missiles flying from those, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah,
we got the Moab,
air and sea.
Right. No, that's the thing is people don't understand that we probably don't need boots on the ground to have. Well, we definitely don't need boots on the ground for regime change. And if we have the kind of intelligence capabilities that I think we have, if we know as much about what's going on inside Iran as I suspect that we do, we know where all their leaders are. We know where the entire chain of command is, and we have the capability of executing them, or at least a very good chance of successfully executing pretty much any of them. And that's if there's negotiations at all going on right now behind the scenes, it's basically gun to the head. You have to leave or we'll kill you and your family, and we'll install this puppet regime that loves Israel.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, have you seen the thing that they're promising now, that they're saying Thursday or Friday there's going to be, I want to get to the Tucker thing too. He's beefing with Tucker. Here it is. They're saying Thursday or Friday, something really big, even bigger than the beeper operation. So they have some trick up their sleeve that they're going to hit us with. And guys, I know I apologize that the audios are low on these videos and they come through even lower through the program we're using, but hopefully you guys can hear this one a little bit. This is that video.
We've pulled off a number of surprises. When the dust settles, you're going to see some surprises on Thursday night and Friday that will make the beeper operation almost seem simple. We've pulled off a number.
It was very quiet.
Yep.
Thursday or Friday, they're going to have some operation up their sleeve that's going to make the beepers look simple. So who knows what that's going to be?
Well, yeah, they've infiltrated Iran's infrastructure before. They had like I forget the name of that the virus that they put in that destroyed all their centrifuges. That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you could have stuff like that's been just dormant in their electrical grid, in their manufacturing of their weapons, or who knows? But I'm sure they have penetrated Iran in terms of their cybersecurity. I'm sure Iranian cybersecurity is not the best in the world, especially compared to the hackers and that we have employed at the federal government here and in Tel Aviv. So there could be any kind of cyber warfare thing that they're planning. It could be if they built a drone base in Iran, who knows what else they could have built over there. I mean, they could have a fucking nuke over there. I mean, there could, I mean, if you think about it, there literally could just be a nuke buried underneath Tehran somewhere, like where they could just hit a button and blow it all up. These shady, shifty motherfuckers have been trying to do this for 40 years. And look, these guys are not dangerous opponents that we're trying to get rid of because of their incompetency. I mean, they're really competent people. I mean, that's why they've managed to pull this off for so long. And so, this is another reason why I don't think that we'll have boots on the ground. Iran never really stood a chance. Like Iran, while they certainly have, they're definitely not like it's not Afghanistan, right? They're not a bunch of third world rural goat herders or genetically they're even different. They're not even Arab. They are Persians. They are higher IQ.
Aryan kings.
Right. They're more sophisticated. They're not building rockets in their garage or in a tunnel in Gaza or something like that. They have actual manufacturing capabilities, and they do have some smart people, but they don't have the. I mean, what's the
They don't have the
population around?
Ashkenazi IQ and European ingenuity.
Well,
that's a joke, by the way, guys. Yeah.
Well, to some degree, that's true, but they also don't have like the pool of. I mean, they just don't have the human capital for it. I mean, what's the population of Iran? Like 100 million? And versus
is what I recall.
Okay, there you go. So it's less than 100 million.
Less geniuses.
Right. So they have less people, and not only that, but Israel's been assassinating their geniuses for like 40 years. So it's like, what do they got left at this point? How many Iranian kids want to be a nuclear scientist when everyone that you see on TV is getting their head blown off by a fucking predator drone? That seems like not exactly the best career to get into if it's going to have that kind of life expectancy attached to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here's a Knesset member in Israel saying that they're not allowing Israelis to travel abroad, so they can't flee. Only those who came to visit, tourists, business visitors, or diplomats will be allowed to leave. What do you think that is? Scared everybody's going to flee?
No, I wonder. If
they want human shields.
Well, it's probably a lot of things. I would say the human shield thing is not off base, and I would also say that as Zionists, they have done everything they can to try to get Jews to go to Israel, and the last thing you want now is for them to leave Israel because they're like, fuck this is too dangerous out here. I'm going to go back to Spain or Mexico, wherever.
Right. Did you see the video of the Israeli going to France, and everybody was like booing her and heckling her, and she was like, she had her flag and she was yelling and stuff a few days ago?
No, I didn't see that. But I'm glad. You love to see it, though. I'm glad to see that there is. There was a time not so long ago to where you wouldn't see anything like that in public. You would not see anyone opposing Israelis in public, and now that seems to happen on a somewhat regular basis. But yeah, I think that part of why they don't want people to leave is they don't want they spend a lot of time trying to get them there, and last thing, if they leave, they might not come back. And
it makes them look like cowards too. And then if some people start leaving, and if you see full airports, then more people are going to panic and leave too. It doesn't give a sense of confidence, probably also.
Right.
So Trump has lost Tucker Carlson. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz is attacking him as well. Who's the other Jewish libertarian guy? What's his name? Dave Smith. But look at this. Donald Trump. America first means many great things, including the fact that it's always been Israel first. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Make America great again. He still thinks that that's working. He said the line and everybody gets on board and gets in line, right? And then he says, somebody please explain to kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, well, the thing is, people eat that up, though. There are people that eat that up. There are people that, look, some of it, because they did the big tent strategy, trying to just make Trump everything to everybody. There are a large portion of MAGA-tards that were Bernie bros at some point, and thought they were getting some kind of anti-war libertarian or something. Because, you know, again, Trump was everything to everybody. He was just, what do you care about? Well, Trump supports that. And so, but that's only a fraction. There's still a lot of the boomers that have been thirsty for war in Iran since the days I was a kid listening to Rush Limbaugh. You know, like they wanted to bomb Iran back then. You know, you had John McCain, you know, singing that song on the Senate floor, bomb, 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 bomb Iran. Like he sang that on the Senate floor. And so you've got people that it's been socially acceptable to invade Iran for over 2 decades at least. And so you still have kind of like those people that are on board with it. And quite frankly, a lot of the people that got on board with Trump are just so politically retarded and ignorant that they got on for the brand. They got on for the meme. They got on for the Trump riding a T-Rex, riding a Abrams tank, you know, like
owning the libs. They're on,
right.
They're on board on the Trump train because they're owning the libs.
Well, and then you got that aspect of it too, because they look at the people at Yale that are protesting. Oh, look, it's the brown anti-Semites, and so they actually do, in a weird way, think that going to Iran because it's pissing off brown people at Yale or wherever, that must be the base thing to do because it's triggering the libs.
First stance, right? That's a good point,
right?
Let's see. Here's Trump. Hopefully this is a little louder. Let's hear this one. Yeah, it is good.
You're complicit in the war. Tucker Carlson criticizing you, saying that you're complicit in the war.
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen.
And quickly, have you spoken to Zelensky before your bylaws?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Japan?
A lot of them.
What happened?
Well,
dude, Trump, like Tucker is one of the top. He had the top show on Fox News. He was the top news anchor in the country. He was one of Trump's biggest supporters, and now he just says he's complicit in the war. And he says, "Oh, you should go on the news. You should work for a news company."
No, and it's the most boomer retard out of touch thing to say that, oh, no one's going to watch you unless you're on TV.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize Joe Rogan was on TV. You know, it's like,
yeah, you got elected by podcasters,
right?
Independent media, basically.
Yeah.
It's no answer. He could have just answered like, no, I'm actually not. I'm like, we knew about it, but we're not in war yet. We haven't bombed them. We haven't even shot anything down. He could have answered the question, but he goes, oh, he's not on Fox News anymore.
Well, it's
funny. Didn't he get fired from Fox News because he was saying stop the steal and the elections were rigged and Dominion? You know, that's why he lost.
Well, that's because Trump's loyalty only goes one way. He demands loyalty from people, and then the second that they are inconvenient for him, he throws them under the bus. You know, whether you're talking about, and this was early on. I mean, whether you're talking about Roger Stone or General Flynn, or anyone that became even like the slightest bit of a political liability, he immediately throws under the bus. He has zero loyalty to his people, and yet he demands 1,000% from everybody. And so and he's always been like that. This is the funny thing is Trump's been in the public eye for like 40, 50 years, and people are still surprised by his behavior. He used to talk shit about the media back in I was looking for old interviews of him during the 80s and 90s, because I was finding all this coverage about his divorce and how he used to cheat on his wife all the time, and how he just was like basically a playboy in the 80s and 90s and this complete degenerate. And because the media was reporting on that, he didn't use the phrase fake news, but he might as well have. I found this interview with him and Bill O'Reilly back when Bill O'Reilly worked for Current Affair, in the 1990s. And he sounded like the same Trump that would have been talking to Jim Acosta from CNN during his first term, where he's saying that, like, oh, you people, you always lie about me. You're always lying about me, and you put out these, journalists are terrible people. They'll just say anything, and it's like, yeah, okay, look, there's some truth to that. Everyone gets that, and that's why people like that he says it, because there is some truth to that. But at the same time, you were cheating on your wife. You were banging models. You were doing all this shit. You're just mad that people are know about it now. So, the fact that he's like this, the fact that he's like a child when confronted with things, he's like a petulant fucking child that all he cares about is his image. That's nothing new. He's always been like that.
Yeah. Yep. You mentioned Flynn. Flynn is all over pushing for this war, by the way, too. His neocon sign is totally coming out. That's another "I told you so" with all the people that were like, "Oh, he's an American patriot." No, he's his Israel slave as well.
He's like, he might as well work for Mossad directly. In fact, he might.
He did. When he lost his whatever position he had with Trump, he went and worked for an Israeli lobbyist.
There you
Israeli
go.
Lobby.
Yeah.
Meghan McCain is loving Trump now, calling out Kooky Tucker. That's how you know that things are going well.
Yeah, the good old McCain's also big Israel shills since the beginning of time.
Okay, let's do these super chats now. I got a little bit more, but I guess I could cover them tomorrow with some of this other stuff. Here, I do want to ask you this. Would you take, I'm sure you saw this video, Netanyahu saying that America first, he says, I understand America first. I don't understand America dead. And he says, there's going to be, today it's Tel Aviv, tomorrow it's New York. Is that a threat?
I saw the clip yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a threat. I think it's him trying. I think that he understands the opposition to Israel these days in American politics and its relation to America first, whether you're talking about like the Groyper side of things, where they, quite literally, Nick show is called America First, or whether it's the MAGA-tards that bought on to the anti-war version of Trump in the head that like to say, and they also like the mantra of America First. He knows that it's around, the isolationism is around this idea of America first. And I think he's just trying to throw in this fantasy, that the boomers who like him believe that, Israel is like, we're like the dam holding back Islam, like if today it's Israel, but tomorrow it'll be New York, like the Islamists will, if they defeat Israel, it's the only thing holding back the radical Islam from invading the West. The most insane thing ever, because it's really quite literally the only thing that's been driving radical Islamists into the West. Whether you're talking about actual Islamist refugees going into the West, or the thing that motivates the Islamist terrorists to attack the West, which is their support of Israel. So it's a complete inversion of reality that Israel is somehow stopping the West from having to confront radical Islam. Israel's the only thing making the West confront radical Islam. Yeah. And so, but I think that that's all I meant by that. I mean, unless that, was
trying to scare you that if you don't defend them, they're going to attack you too.
Right. And by the way, sometimes, obviously we know because of 9/11, Israel is very willing to also false flag Americans, bomb them into a war, as he put it another way.
Or all this stuff about Trump being assassinated too. Like he was saying that too.
Which is obviously stupid, because he said like, oh, the 2 assassination attempts. Well, first of all, the first guy, well, let's just say somehow, like everything indicates that that's not the case. It just indicates everything I've looked into, and I looked into it when it happened pretty thoroughly. It looks like it was just some guy, right? Some crazy fucking guy with nothing going on in his life, wanted to make a name for himself, wanted to impress the world and go out with a bang, and still sucked at it.
They never showed any proof that it was Iran.
Right.
Netanyahu's not there saying it.
Well, and then, but here's the thing, the way he's full of shit is the second guy, the guy that was on the golf course who was
The
just some
Ukraine guy,
crazy,
right? That was the
right?
Ukrainian obsessed guy. Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Iran, even a little bit. And so the first guy, you could say maybe because he's dead, and like, I mean, it's obviously it's not true, but like you could at least lie and say maybe because we don't know. Maybe he had a secret Iranian handler, and he had a secret cell phone that we don't know about, where he used to talk to Tehran directly, and he burned it before he went into whatever, right? Whatever stupid fantasy 007 bullshit you think was going on there. But the second guy, especially, we know was just like some fucking retarded nutcase, because we have him, and so the idea that that Mossad would believe that Iran was behind not just one but both of those attempts is complete bullshit. And so it's just further, as if we need any more further proof on the mountain of proof that he just lies to Americans so that they want to go fight his wars for him.
Miga is trending right now. Make Israel great again. That's good to see.
Yeah, you got to love that, considering CPAC not that long ago was handing out hats that said "Make Israel great again," and they thought that was totally optical. And now I think that has shifted. The culture on the right has shifted enough to where even if you are someone that liked that hat back when CPAC was giving those out, you would kind of feel cringe wearing it these days.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's activate these power chats, guys. Hopefully this works. Let me know if you can hear this, Devin, when the first one starts here. Hopefully it will. Should start up any moment now, hopefully. We got a few, and thanks for your time, Devin. Everybody subscribe to Devin over on... Is your main spot Odysee? Okay, here we go. You hearing that?
I do not hear it.
Okay, hold on. Maybe now.
Nope. I see the text over your video frame, so I can read it.
Work, guys. Jack to Cripper sent $10 on Rumble. Adam Green and Devin Stack is literally the all-star team. Philosophers focused on saving whites. Adam and Devin, check out their entries on YouTube. It's not about owning Christians. It's info you need.
Thank you, Jack. Yo, thanks, Indomitably Based.
Sent $50 on Rumble. Trump is not just giving Netanyahu a blank CHRCK, but he is also giving Putin one, openly ending any pressure for Putin even to come to the table, and taking defensive weapons away from Ukraine. Enough?
Yep. Thank you, Indomitably.
Glub sent $10. Master of oneself, no other. Individual sovereignty overrides all external authority. Liberty blooms when righteous force shines.
Very poetic. Thank you, buddy. Yes, thank you, John, for the big one.
$50. Greetings from Tor Town. Serious question. Where would we be without the Jewish fictions? Certainly way beyond Tesla power and without Einstein corrupted and kneecapping physics.
Chris Johnston sent $5. Great show, guys. Some say it's over, but I think our story has just begun. Have hope to live for whatever happens.
We're going to live. Don't worry.
Oh, Daddy,
green and black.
Send $5. Green and black.
Yeah. The green pill and the black pill.
White trash enthusiast sent $22. Thanks.
White excellency, not trash.
Green and black. Sent $5. Green and black.
Yahoo. Thank you. Corn Pop.
Corn Pop the bad dude once sent $5 on Rumble. There's a boomer death clock you can find. 36% are dead. 53 mil predicted in 2086.
Oh man, we still got a ways to go.
I'm tempted to put that on my stream. Like have a live thing in the
Like
corner.
Devin is waking up to the CQ.
HT.
Hopefully more content creators continue to expose Rabbi Jesus.
Yes, we've been noticing, Devin.
Rapio sent $10 on Rumble. Keep up the good work, bruv.
Thank you, bruv. Okay, is that the last one? Appreciate you guys. There was one question there I wanted to elaborate. Were you able to hear those finally once I got it turned on?
Yeah. Once
Cool.
you resituated things, it was working.
Cool. So the 50. Oh, you guys are probably hearing an echo though. Let me turn that off. Was he echoing right there, guys? I believe so. Okay, John Fitzgerald for 50 says, "Greetings from Torah Town." That's a new inside joke because we were playing a clip of Pence yesterday on Fox, and it said from, what was it, Zionsville. That's where he was calling from.
Live from Zionsville, Mike Pence.
Devin is green-pilled and black-pilled, official green-pilled. So John Fitzgerald says, Torah Town, serious question, where would we be without the Jewish fictions way beyond Tesla power and without Einstein corrupting and kneecapping physics? And HT said, where was it? Shoot, it disappeared. He talked about, looks like Devin is waking up to the CQ. Hopefully more content creators continue to expose Rabbi Jesus. You know, we have got some overlap in our audience, Devin, and anytime you're doing a stream calling out Christianity, I hear about it and we celebrate it. Are you having a lot more Christian fatigue lately? Is that fair to say?
Well, I think I look at it a little bit differently than some people do, just because I think that and look, I've always, by the way, I've even in my book that I wrote back when Trump was president the first time, I wrote in there I expressed some of the vulnerabilities I saw in Christianity and the relationship to Jews and kind of the problems that creates and that we are currently experiencing. But I think that where we kind of differ is where I also understand that Christianity is something that whites, including my ancestors, have practiced for several centuries, and that we have done great things with that framework, that theological framework. And I don't think it was the greatest thing socially for our country, just as an example, that we became less Christian in like the 80s and 90s, that people, or in the 70s when a lot of boomers started exploring Eastern religions and started following these Indian swamis and all this other shit and the Hare Krishnas and just like after the 1950s and 60s when we kind of rejected the Christian tradition that we'd had in this country for a long time, it seemed like a lot of things went wrong. A lot of things went wrong. Now, that said, there is a huge problem with this software. Like it has wide open ports that are easily hacked by Jews, and especially with it's worse in some than it is in others. But it is across the board. Like I had some Catholic get mad at my stream that I did, my last stream, saying that, well, Catholics don't believe that, in the same Zionist bullshit that the evangelicals do. And well, to a degree, that's true. Look at who the most powerful Catholics in American politics have been over the last few years. Joe Biden was a Catholic, and he was arguably the most powerful Catholic in the world. And he said many times he is a Zionist. He says it on video. You can find the video of him saying it. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, who's 3 heartbeats away from the presidency, and so therefore, in effect, the second most powerful Catholic in the world, politically speaking, in the world, also says she was a Zionist. Her dad was a fucking Shabbos goy, for fuck's sake. The idea that Catholics are somehow different or uniquely immune to this is absurd. Because I looked, every single Catholic member of Congress and has either with their votes 100% of the time supported Israel, or actually that's the case 100% of the time they have, but additionally, even on in some cases, have been very vocal about it and have done so in a religious way, in the way that they framed it. Now, it is true, it is different. Catholics, the Catholic Church, the way it looks at Revelations and the end times, it is not the same as like these rapture third temple weirdos that that have hijacked the evangelical church. It is a little, it is different.
They do think an antichrist has to rule before Jesus comes, though.
Right. And that's, and I honestly, that is like what we already talked about, having the end times aspect of your religion, where your whole existence kind of includes this. We all, the whole world goes to shit in the end, and that's a good thing. That's probably not the best thing. But on top of that, really, my issue is the thing that the vulnerability I find most, especially given our current situation, most egregious isn't even really the Jew thing as much as it is the universalist aspect of Christianity, where that's what's going to lead to open borders. That
most Catholics aren't even European anymore.
Well, that's the thing, is that's why the Catholic Church is all about open borders, because who's coming in? It's Catholics, right. And so and you're right. The majority, it used to be, by the way, Christianity was almost synonymous with white person, because the people that were Christians were white Europeans for a long time. In fact, if you look at old founding documents from colonists, or even from English colonists that were in foreign countries, they used interchangeably Christian for white person. Like if they said, oh, there were 4 people came into the camp and 3 of them were Christian, they meant 3 of them were white people and 1 was an Indian or something like that. Like that's what it meant. And so they used to be interchangeable. Now,
good video
the majority,
about that, by the way. I caught some of that. Another one you did recently about the settlers. What are who were they? Jamestown or something, and how the Christians tried to convert the Indians and were turning the other cheek and stuff. Another good video.
And the Indians just massacred them.
Problems with Christianity, right?
Well, right, and so, but back then that used to be used interchangeably, but now today the majority of Christians are not white. The majority of Catholics are not white, and it's not a white religion, and so if you are a white nationalist and you are someone who prioritizes the survival of white people, you have to acknowledge this. You have to acknowledge that this aspect, your religion is not going to be a tool or an avenue that's or anything that's really going to further these goals.
Yeah, and you're disavowed. You go take any of the stuff that these Catholics are saying online to us, and you'd be thrown out of your church. Look at Groyper, Fuentes and the Groypers got explicitly disavowed by the U.S. Catholic organization.
Right, and look, and I understand that there is the Catholic Church is weird because there is some diversity even within the Catholic Church that it's hard for me to relate to, because in Mormonism it's like it's universal within the church. Like whatever the president of the church says, like you're on board with that, or you're quite literally you're excommunicated. Whereas Catholics seem to be able to waffle around and say, well, every time you point out to one of these organizations, they say, well, they're not real Catholics. It's like, well, then you sound like a Jew, because that's what Jews say too. They say, oh, they're not real Jews,
Yeah. Like not all Jews believe that. Not all rabbis believe it. It's the no true Scotsman. That's what all sides do.
So it's not a good excuse. And look, I'm not saying like it's like fine, be a Catholic. A lot of my friends are Catholic. And Catholics are very similar in terms of their family values and the environments that they raise their children in, that as I was raised in growing up. I lived in an area that if you weren't Mormon, you were Catholic, basically. And so like I know a lot of Catholics, and I realize there is a difference between the Catholics and Mormons of the world versus the evangelicals, because when I would encounter the evangelicals, it was like encountering, cult member weirdos. Like there is a different vibe entirely.
Well, that's what they say about Catholics. That's basically what all Christians say about
Right.
Mormons also.
Right. Well, right. And Catholics say that about Mormons, and everyone says that.
Yeah.
Everyone says that about Mormons. But I would say that, and that's the other thing too, is there is the Christians don't even get along with each other, right? There is no solidarity among the different denominations. And so trying to think that Christianity is going to be what brings white people together it's a little silly. It's a little
not
silly.
going to be our unity. And then they'll say like, you're being anti-white because you're exposing Christianity, when we already talked about how, especially the trajectory and the demographics, it's not a white religion. It never started as a white religion. It was started all with Jews and in a version of Judaism. So, and then there's this video. Can we play this real quick? This was on the itinerary, and then we're going to wrap it too. I know we're a little over time. The first bishop appointed by Pope Leo XIV, Michael Pham, is mobilizing to have priests to go to immigration hearings with the immigrants. This is the answer, guys. This is the only way, don't you know? Let's hear him.
Is he Catholic?
Yeah.
Yep.
A real Catholic. This is what a real Catholic looks like.
You guys, this is so cool. I had to jump on and say something. So, the first bishop appointed by Pope Leo, Bishop Michael Pham in San Diego, is mobilizing his priests to accompany migrants to their trials and having them go to court with them to help them through the process and to hopefully deter ICE from arresting them when they're showing up to go to their hearings. This is like the coolest thing I've ever heard of. So we're finally seeing the church mobilize to protect the migrants as we are commanded to by Jesus. I love this. Love Pope Leo. Love it.
Huge win.
Yeah, finally.
You Christian.
Well, the other thing is, let's just be historically accurate. Finally, the Catholics have been pro-immigration. They've been pulling these stunts since like forever, because they were always immigrants. The founding fathers were not Catholic. In fact, one of the reasons why the founding fathers went to war with England, one of the intolerable acts was that the King George let in some Catholics, and it pissed them off. Like that was literally one of the things they listed when they were listing the intolerable actions of the tyrant King George, is that he let some Catholics in from Canada.
yeah. When I was in England, I was in one of the castles, and they had they arrested and tortured Catholics, and they still had the chambers, and you could see their like crosses and stuff that they carved on the wall. And some of the first colonies and states even had laws that Catholics couldn't hold office, because you're basically a fifth column. The Russian Orthodox Church is a fifth column too for Russia. But these people aren't America first. They're not Europeans first. They're Jesus first. They're the Pope first.
Well, I'd say, look, if you're a true Catholic, you kind of are. Like you kind of have to be, right? Like you do have to be. And that's and unfortunately that's something that people need to just look. You have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that is real. That's real, and that's all. I don't try to especially because it's the kind of thing that I think that if everyone I think quite frankly, as much as you would solve maybe some of these things, if you waved a magic wand and tomorrow everyone was atheist, maybe you'd get rid of these vulnerabilities in terms of Jewish subversion and stuff like that. Or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe it would they would change tactics, and you'd have the kind of Jewish subversion, like the degeneracy subversion you had in the 90s when people became less religious. So I don't think that it's a silver bullet, solution to get rid of. I don't think Christianity is the problem. I think it's a problem in the way that it's currently. It's
a huge problem. It's one of the major
it's
problems.
Big.
Yeah.
No, it's big, and people need to acknowledge that it is big, and there is here's the thing that makes it big.
It's not the only problem. That's what you're trying to say, and I agree.
Right.
With that. It's not the only problem.
And the thing that makes it big though too is there's no ability to reform it. So for example, it's not like the everyday Catholic that doesn't like Jewish subversion, doesn't want doesn't want anything to do with the whole Zionism thing, wants maybe in fact to get rid of Jews in positions of power. Maybe they're like total trad Catholic monarchy, whatever. It doesn't matter if that's how you are, if your organization is not like that. If and you have no say in it. It's not like you don't vote for Pope. So even if you try to get more Catholics to think like you do, it doesn't really matter, because because the majority of the Catholics aren't even white. And like, what are you going to do? Start lobbying for a Pope that is pro-white in the Congo? Like what are you going to do to convince people, your fellow Catholics, to go along with this? So it doesn't make any sense that you would think that Catholicism, or by the way, I don't want to pick on Catholicism. This would apply to Mormons. This would apply to the Episcopal Church. This would apply to, I'm not aware of, any major denomination that has, more than, we'll say 10,000 members, that would be pro-white explicitly, or even implicitly. Like, there's none of these churches would turn you away for being a illegal immigrant or whatever. And so it's really frustrating that people think that this is somehow necessary for and look, I kind of get it, because if you look at Jews as an example, as maybe the example of what tribalism can do for you, it does have a religious component, and it has a very strong racial component. But here's the difference: their religion has a racial component. Their religion is based on the idea that they are superior racially, and so they can do that. They can use that as a glue that holds them together, that makes them more powerful. But that's not something you'll ever be able to do with Christianity, because it lacks that component. In fact, it has the opposite of that. It says that you're supposed to embrace all these other people, and that we're all God's. That's where the whole boomer "we're all God's children" meme comes from. It's literally it's part of Christianity, or at least, again, the way that it's practiced. Now, I'd be interested, because I do feel it is a little weird to me when you look back at some of the, and you don't even have to go back that far. You go back pre-World War II, and there were some very, Christian white people who had a very healthy understanding and sense of race, and that and I don't know how the two coexisted. I don't know what has to be accomplished to make the two coexist again. But I think there's proof that it can be done. And so I don't see Christianity as like this obstacle that makes it impossible for white people to succeed, because I feel like it's in many ways it helped. Like, if you look at the cathedrals that we built,
it's kind of hard to put the cat back in the bag, though, because now that they're like in control of the institutions, are you really going to overturn those?
Right. Well, that's the thing, is it could be, like you said, and not only that, but times have also changed, right? Like, you could say that, Christianity could exist in a very racially conscious society, a white racially conscious society, prior to World War II, and prior to even the ability for mass immigration to take place. Like, there was no mass transit. Like, you couldn't have mass immigration. Even if you wanted, you couldn't have millions of Africans coming to America. So even if you had, like, maybe this Christian desire to, take care of people, and this sense of charity towards the downtrodden, you didn't have the ability to have, infinity fucking Africans in your country. So even if you had like this vulnerability, it couldn't be exploited because the technology didn't exist. So maybe now that this technology exists, it is a problem. I don't know, but these are the things I'm just asking Christians to think about this stuff, because I don't think they do. And you need to just be aware of these problems and ask yourself, well, what role has this played? And that's all I'm asking people to do. Even from a practical standpoint, you're not going to, I don't think you're going to reason a religious zealot is never, they're always going to just dig in further. The more you try to argue them out of their religion, they're just going to dig in further. And so I like to just say, hey, look, these are facts. And I think you do this to some extent too. I think, look at what these rabbis are saying. Look at what's going on. What do you think of this? And I think that getting people to actually examine something that they're told to have blind faith in, because that's also another hurdle, right? Like growing up, you're just told that, well, you're not supposed to understand it. How would you understand the mind of God, right? And so you're just supposed to blind. And in fact, you're rewarded the more you don't understand it. Weirdly, the more like God likes you, that you just still believe it anyway. Like the less you have an actual reason to believe it and still believe it, like the better you are, as in terms of like your value or what your obedience to God, right? And so like that's kind of a problem. You should have a rational understanding of why you would believe what you believe, and look, there's a lot of geniuses over the centuries that have been Christian, a lot of really logical, rational people that have been Christian. It's not incompatible. A lot of my family members who are very highly intelligent, rational people who are Christian, and so I don't think it's incompatible, but it is an issue. It's a big problem, and without the leadership that you would need, without like an anti-Semitic pope or something like that, which you're not getting, not in your lifetime, most likely, it's dead on arrival in terms of something that's going to help us.
Yeah, that's the term. Well said. Dead on arrival. And the huge issue I see is like we've been having this Christian opposition and these talking points. Like they're the synagogue of Satan. They killed Jesus. They drink baby blood. Jesus wasn't Jewish. All of these things, they've been said over and over again. And the Zionists just have in that time have just gotten even more power and more influence. And I don't see it as legitimate opposition to the Jews and their quote unquote Zionist plan when you believe in their prophecies and you believe in their book and you worship their God and you worship Messiah from the Torah. It's just it's all in the Judeo paradigm, and you're like dancing to the beat of their drum. So I think we need to try another way, because what they've been doing isn't working. And if I thought it would work, I would be a Christian. I would bite the bullet and say, okay, I don't believe it, but hey, maybe this is the way forward. But I am very convinced that it's not. And in fact, if we continue down the path, we're guaranteed to lose. It's a non-starter, dead on arrival, as you said.
Well, I guess, and I've said this on my streams. I said, look, I wish there was like a based Christianity, because there's a lot of things about Christianity I love and I miss, and I think we do need religious communities, and I think that we do need universally agreed upon, at least for our people, ethics and values. And I think that that's something that we don't have, and that is with the Jews, that is a glue that we don't have that we need to hold us together. But yeah, like until you have leadership, you can say whatever you want about how well, the Catholic Church is different, or Orthodoxy is different, or whoever's different. Judge a tree by its fruits, as they would say, right? Where are all these fruit? If are you sure? Show me the where it's happening that Catholicism or Orthodoxy or Mormonism or whoever is challenging Jewish power. Show me where that's actually happening, because if it's not, then it doesn't matter.
Totally. Okay, I'm going to let you go, but there was one more super chat here that I want to read. Bolslaw for $10. Let's go. Oh, shoot. Here we go. Controls. I got to get this turned back on. I need a better way to do this. Okay, it should be coming through now here. Appreciate everybody for the support. We made the goal. Thank you, Devin, so much for your time today. I enjoyed the talk. Everybody subscribe to him over on Odysee and Rumble and on Twitter.
Cartman with a heart sent $5 on Rumble. I just moved out to the country. Like 99% white around here. I go into town to Walmart one time and encounter blacks behaving like blacks. I'm tired, boss.
Go to Target, not Walmart.
Target's just as bad these days.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to the Target on the right in the right town.
Target's
Yeah.
not as Target as it used to be.
Yeah. Here it is.
Sent $10 question to Devin. Why, Jack, Christian tradition was good. Don't you confuse Christian traditions with European traditions. Eat? Yes, writing from Shalom Town.
Did you make that out from Shalom Town?
Yeah, I mean, look, to say that Christianity didn't influence white ethics, even though it was the religion du jour for 1,000 years, is insane. But vice versa. Obviously, it's not the origin of all of our ethics and values either. But it certainly positively influenced the behavior of my ancestors and yours.
Didn't it negatively too, though? Like led to like liberal values and loving your enemy and taking care of the foreigner and the stranger. And I mean, that's why these Catholics that are like so pro mass immigration and refugees, like that is Christian values.
Sure. But I would say that in a different time, though, those values probably led to some of our great accomplishments, and I think that really part of this struggle is Christianity not necessarily being as I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I don't want to say relevant or compatible even, but it doesn't address. I mean, let me just put it this way. The issues of 2,000 years ago are not the issues of today. The problems of 2,000 years ago are not the problems of today. And they're radically different, and they will continue to be radically different. And while you can say on a basic level, good is always good and wrong, bad is always bad. And there's some things, you're right. There are some things that will always be wrong, and there are some things that will always be right. There are some things that will change. There are some things that are dynamic, and they'll be always changing and always evolving. And there is no mechanism to update these values and these rules to live by to accommodate this dynamic environment. And so I think that that's part of what's going on. Is there are situations like, for example, medieval Europe, when you are in an environment where everyone, like, you're never going to leave your town, let alone the country, right? You're never even going to meet someone from another country in your life. And so having these values that it's good to take care of the poor, it's good to take care of the needy. Well, you're going to be limited to the people that live within a few miles of yourself. And so, yeah, that's like a really good thing to have those kind of altruistic tendencies and to have these liberal tendencies. That's going to actually be a good thing. It's going to help your community grow and succeed. But now, once you give someone that has that kind of a mindset access to the entire world, and that's what they're judging, who the needy are and who the poor are and who the people that need our help are. I mean, you're giving them an entire continent full of people who are always going to be less successful than they are. And, you're basically just asking for trouble, because all those tendencies are now going to be channeled into dysgenic, damaging behaviors, like let's bring in all the poor people from Africa and take care of them.
Yeah, given this under different circumstances, the positives could be negatives. I see what you're saying, and there is some truth to that for sure. On your stream the other day, you were talking about how they're like, it's something about they're going to Africa or feeding everybody that couldn't feed themselves and helping them with their diseases and stuff. And now they had a population boom and they're all coming into European countries. It reminded me, this hit close to home. I remember many years ago, it reminded me of this. My mom, at a time when I had like no money in my bank account and I wasn't getting to do things that I wanted to do, my mom donated a bunch of money to a missionary at the church so they could go teach Rabbi Jesus to like Africa, or I can't remember where it was, and I was so mad about it. But that's what you get with Christianity. That type of shit.
And that's a perfect example, because if this was 500 years ago, your mom wouldn't be doing that. Your mom wouldn't be trying to send money outside of the community like
Actually,
that.
that's not true. 500 years ago, the Catholic Church was colonizing and trying to teach Jesus to all the Native Americans throughout the West Coast over here.
Well, that's. I mean,
we're doing it.
There was definitely that missionary work stuff going on, but not to the degree that you would have now.
And
I mean, I don't know.
Celebrate that too. The Christians spread the Torah and messianic ideas around the world, and now we are where we're at. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say this though. I do think, and not to agree with those rabbis, because that's the last thing I don't want to do. I would say that, and this is a compliment that I have for Christianity. I do think that it's a more rational, as much as you can make fun of all the inconsistencies and whatever in a 2,000-year-old foreign religion. It compared to the kind of shit that like Native Americans were, like human sacrifices and that kind of shit that was happening when the Spaniards showed up in Mexico. It is way more conducive to a peaceful, successful, growing, progressive. I don't mean progressive in a political sense, but progressive in terms of technology and accomplishments. Christianity does facilitate that in a way that what the shit they were practicing here never would have. Like they were always going to be stuck in the fucking Stone Ages, so long as they thought that they had to have human sacrifices and all that shit, like in Apocalypto.
The Romans brought a lot of technology and philosophical advancement to nations around the world too. So I think that's just European, and my take is that we thrived at times under Christianity, but it was in spite of Christianity. I think we would have been a lot better off if we had never adopted the Jewish paradigm.
Well, I definitely would not underplay the role genetics, played in that. Genetics made. I think white people generally can thrive under most conditions, theologically and otherwise, because I think that that's just what I think highly of my people, and so certainly that played a role. But I don't think that I do think it's a bad idea to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that like I said, there's been a lot of really smart, really rational, smarter than me people over the centuries, great Europeans in history that were Christian, that believed it 100% and studied it, and if they were able to be the men that they were, I don't think it was 100% in spite of their theology. I think many of them were inspired by it. Is that relevant today? I guess that's the debate, right? I think that the modern problems facing white people right now, some of them are caused by our Christian heritage and sort of the framework that provides for people, and it's more evident in evangelicals perhaps than in Orthodox or Ortho Bros or whatever. But some of those same vulnerabilities exist across the board. I'll say that.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much, Devin. I know we went way over time. I hope it's all good. Thanks for coming on again. Well, me and Devin have been we haven't done a lot, but we even did a show, I think, back when we were both still on YouTube, way back in the day when we had our big YouTube channels. And it's been a long run. And Devin's always been very cool, and he's always had some great takes. And no refunds. You fell for it again. Devin's been right. I've been right. And all you guys should pay attention. Start listening. All right. Thank you, Devin.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, we've been around a long time. We're the OGs, and we've managed to stay around in spite of all the censorship, in spite of all the people who have sought to destroy us because they hate us for what we say, and you've been lied about a lot. I've been lied about a lot. So I think we have a lot in common in terms of we've kind of, I think we started around the same time too, you know, like we kind of came on the scene and started doing this kind of a gig around the same time period. So we've sort of watched it as it has evolved. And yeah, hopefully we get to indulge a little bit in like a lot of the Christian evangelicals who think that they are going to create, you know, a situation where Jesus comes. Hopefully we get to also be the main characters in our stories and see some kind of resolution to this Jewish domination that the West has suffered under for so long.
Very
a happy
well
ending.
said. Happy ending. I hope so too. We're gonna stick it out and not give up. That's for sure. Thank you everybody for the support. Thank you, Devin. Follow Devin. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Everybody have a nice night. Take care.